extremely valuable service working in and with Oromo humanitarian organizations such as Majat Ulama. He has served in various capacities in several Oromo communities and Oromo civil societies in North America, advocating for and advancing Oromo interests. In his personal and professional life, Obbo Rayaa has had a long and successful career with Statistics Canada, which is the national statistical office of the country, that ensures the Canadian government, businesses, and individuals have the country's key economic, social, and environmental data or information for critical decision making. He is a passionate and committed Oromo. He tirelessly works to help resolve the Oromo political, economic, and social predicament by effectively contributing to meaningful efforts that would help fortify the foundation of Oromuma and Oromia. Warri diinni keenya lafarraa balleessinaa jedhaniiti xiyyeeffatanii inni mul'akkiin gootanii hin jiraataa jedha. Kanumaananii Obbo Rayaa isinii dhiyeessaa. He will be speaking on the short and long-term impact of the ongoing war in the Ethiopian Empire on humanitarian needs of the Oromo society. Obbo Rayaa na dhageessu miti?
Nan dhagaa.
Okay, fudhadhaa. Galatooma. Daqiiqaa 15 qabdu, please sa'aatii keessan eeggadhaa.
Thank you, Dr. Duguma. Actually, I'm not too sure I can certainly present in Afaan Oromo, but I've already prepared the presentation in English. If you don't mind, I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. And if need be, I'll probably provide you with an abridged version of Oromo if I have some time. So again, thank you, Dr. Bahiru. I'm extremely pleased to be part of this important and timely conference, and also honored to deliver a presentation along with renowned scholars, academics, community leaders, and so on and so forth. As Dr. Bahiru stated, I will be discussing in the short and long impact of the current conflict on humanitarian consequences, primarily as it relates to the Oromo. While discussing this topic, I'll be touching on historical trends of the conflict, the prevailing war, its humanitarian consequences in Oromia, challenges of containing the humanitarian crisis, some strategic approaches of surmounting the challenges, and also try to provide some recommendations. By way of introduction, I would like to touch on underlying causes of the recurrent crisis in Ethiopia, mainly to paint for us some background to this crisis. Much has already been said in the discussion of the previous panels, and in some cases, I think questions were raised and answers were given pertaining to this. So I may not really delve into it so much. However, despite some risk of redundancy, I'll briefly state them again. The causality factors that breed the crisis in perpetuity include the failed project of state formation out of the Ethiopian Empire, lack of democratic ethos, uncompromising culture, and intransigence, intransigent nature of political elites in Ethiopia. I will just encapsulate it with that. As far as the objectives of this presentation goes, I'll attempt to present just the scope of the humanitarian crisis and also solicit an immediate and collective commitment to mitigate the crisis facing the Oromo people. Just as far as the historical trend of the conflict, this current conflict is basically the continuation of historical conflicts, which again, I remember Dr. or Professor Mokra has touched on. And it's basically started off with the war of annexation and incorporation of Oromia within the Ethiopian Empire. And second, after annexation, successive state formation projects have been experimented on Oromia and others. And this has taken a heavy toll, as you all know. For instance, the project of forming a monolithic Ethiopia had been going on for nearly 1 century from Menelik up until Haile Selassie. And the project of creating a socialist Ethiopia, Derg has tried it for 17 years with no success. And again, the forming of the Republic of Ethiopia, which the TPLF-led party attempted to do for 27 plus years with some relative peace. The current or the crisis remained. Ethiopia was marred with conflict. And now under Prosperity Party, that is yearning to establish a greater Ethiopia of yesteryear, is ruling with an iron fist. And ever since this government has come to picture, the Oromia has been riddled with conflict. In terms of the prevailing war and the humanitarian consequences, again, due to time constraint, I may not really go or delve into the details. However, I'll just give you the glimpse of what is really going on. As you know, since 1991, when actually the war broke out, which means since Abiy came, many days of non-combatant civilians have been reported. This have been caught in the crossfire, and we don't have a compendium of data. However, anecdotal evidences suggest that tens, hundreds have been killed here and there across Oromia throughout these years, between 19 up until the present. As far as the internally displaced people go, again, there is no really a coherent, organized statistics as far as the number of displaced due to conflict in Oromia in particular. However, generally, the United Nations Office of the Organization for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported only because of conflict, 2.9 million people have been displaced. Of that, for Oromia, we don't even have a lot of figures because of due to access issue, and which I will come to later on. However, there is one report in 2023 that indicated only in Oromia, mainly in the western part of Oromia and western Wallagga, about 106,000, and also in Horro Guduru, 116 people have been reported to be displaced because of conflict. There are other displacement as well, but I'm just referring specifically war-related. Again, mass incarceration of civilians. This is indirect. Basically, people is suspected of supporting OLA and being amassed in incarceration camps, and for this, tens of thousands are estimated to be in various concentration or prisons across Oromia. And the number of people fleeing the neighboring countries and beyond, again, has escalated because of this war. Again, the estimate is, not any less than tens of thousands. Other consequences, which is very significant, is the food insecurity issue, and many of our people in millions are facing food insecurity. The latest report from OSHA, which is the Organization for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, in Ethiopia alone, they're talking about 20.1 million people are facing food insecurity. And in Oromia, and primarily in the south, they're estimating close to 4 to 5 million. So again, this statistics is quite crude because of access issue, the empirical data is totally, I mean, more than what is being estimated here. As far as the breakdown of infrastructure and disruption of basic services, again, in conflict region areas, primarily in the West and also in Guji, most of the schools, clinics are not really functioning in full capacity. Some in 80–90% capacity gone, and completely, without, they're not rendering their services to the public because either they're being destroyed, and that is the situation as far as some of these basic services, and the rest is, which is a public knowledge, access to the internet and whatnot. It has been an interruption on and off throughout the 2019 up until now. And the other concerning issue, the consequence of this war is cultivation of land partially or wholly ceased at, in conflict zones because of, again, a fear of either intimidation, and the consequence of this is obvious. It would really lead our people to face anger down the road, and the fear of unknown. Okay, has reduced the productivity capacity of our people. That is hard to quantify, but a serious issue. The long-term impacts, I'll just basically go through it quickly. The reigning of lawlessness and insecurity, the breakdown of social fabric of our Oromo society, the implosion of state administrative apparatus. Some signs are not there now. The escalation of the refugee crisis in the Horn of Africa, the mass exodus to European shores and Arab world, and for food security, the dependency on the handout of the global community would rise. And the indication here is between January 23 and June of 23, there has been a rise of almost 35% increase is what the United Nations is reporting. Starvation and disease could ravage the nation, may reach a very apocalyptic proportion. The challenges of containing humanitarian crisis, I would say finding, providing basic necessities of life. This is where we're really seriously hurting. Even the world community is not supporting, and the funding is, what is required is close to 4 billion, they said, and they don't even have 25% of it at the moment. There is an impeded access. Okay, there is an impeded access to inflicted area to get some of the data, and there is a lack of information, data gap, hard to find exact number of people affected in the conflict, especially in Oromia. And the other thing is lack of collective commitment to mobilize resource and support the victims. This is, I'm referring to the Oromo, and some of the, I don't know if you can see it. Sorry. This is the area where the deep red ones are area where it is not accessible at all to even report on data, to see the problem of people, and the light color one is somehow inaccessible. So if you can see pretty much the west and south, and also some part of the southwestern Shawa and across Oromia, there is a serious issue of access. And that's why getting information is even hard. And finally, as long as the long-term challenges, mending the broken social fabric of our societies, that is very concerning. Reinstituting of Oromo cultural value would be very difficult, given the corrupt cultural nature of the Abyssinians that it has infused their culture into ours. Mending it will take generations. Rebuilding a society committed to democratic ethos and peaceful coexistence will not be an easy one. So our strategic option of surrounding the challenges, and I say telling the Oromo plight to the international community collectively and systematically in such a persistent and consistent manner, synchronizing efforts of Oromo humanitarian organizations through forging a consortium of such organization, or building a robust humanitarian organization that garner the overwhelming support of the Oromo people is required. building capacity and filling the existing data gap. There is substantial gap between the number of afflicted people and what is often reported and at the time. So the best option is to really hold the bull by the horn, deal with the root cause of the conflict that breeds humanitarian crisis. I'm sorry. Okay. Ifam.
Ifam guddaa galatooma. Warra qopheessitu na dirqisiisee so waan
Lakki sirri.
Warri gaaffii qabdanii qabadhaa gaaffii keessanii. We go to the next speaker. Our next speaker is not new to anybody in this house, I guess. That would be Dr. Trevor Truman. To maintain the tradition, he is a family medicine practitioner before he called it off. Between 1988 and 1991, Dr. Trevor helped Oromo Relief Association, rendering extremely valuable and life-saving services by way of training Oromo health workers in refugee camps in Sudan. Following the fall of the Derg regime in 1991, he extended his service across the border in Wallagga, what is in Ethiopia, training village health workers in the region. Starting in 1992, he began documenting and reporting on and campaigning against the horrific human rights violations in Ethiopia. He mainstreamed his valuable service in 1994 when he formally incorporated the Oromia Support Group that you all know is the lead investigator and publisher of human rights abuses in Ethiopia. Since its inception, the Oromo Support Group has published 52 reports on human rights abuses in that country, particularly in Oromia. Dr. Truman will be speaking on the short and long-term impact of the ongoing war in Ethiopian Empire on the human rights of the Oromo society. Dr. Truman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baharoon, and greetings to everybody present, and thank you for listening to me. And incidentally, Dr. Baharoon, we've now done 63 reports. The last one was published last week, as I think you should find.
I'm sorry for undercounting the great work that you have done. No, seriously.
Now, okay. Human rights have never been respected in Ethiopia. Ordinary lives have felt to be worthless by the people in power. Under the EPRDF, there was remarkable economic progress, but this was at the cost of hundreds of thousands of detained and tortured people and thousands of people killed in order to maintain central control and to enrich Tigray. But since 2018, there's been an abrupt and catastrophic downturn in all respects in Ethiopia, not only human rights, but the economy, the social structure, political development, and the development of the country as a whole has all been put on hold. As Alex Duval wrote 2 years ago and mentioned this morning, Abiy Ahmed inherited a state, dreamed of an empire, and will be remembered for having destroyed both. Please visit the OSG website for details of abuses since 2018. We've written 14 reports in that time, and they're all chock full of horrific stories, I'm afraid, but it has to be written down and documented. The sharp increase in killings occurred within months of Abiy Ahmed coming to power. And as you know, he targeted the Kero youth, the people who were responsible for him being allowed to come to power in the first place, and anybody suspected of cooperation with the Oromo Liberation Army. Command posts were set up for that purpose, to destroy Kero and to destroy Ola, to dry out the ocean to catch the fish. And in fact, awards were given for the numbers of Kero people that were killed by the commanders of these command posts. There was a further increase last year, especially towards the end of last year, as the Tigray war ended and drones and artillery guns were turned from Tigray, and they turned their sights onto Oromia, as we saw with a wave of drone attacks in October and November last year. Now, Abiy Ahmed equipped and supported Fano as long as Fano was doing his business and attacking only Oromo. He allowed the ethnic cleansing by Fano of Tigaru from Western Tigray, of Agao, Kimant, and Oromo from within Amhara region. There have been hundreds of thousands of IDPs, displaced people from the Oromia Special Zone in Wollo. Fano and the EDF have committed ethnic cleansing of Oromo and Gumuz from Metakel Zone in Benishangul Gumuz region. And Fano have been responsible for gross ethnic cleansing in Horoguduru and East Wolaga over the last few years. Most of the clearances in North and West Shoa seem to have been done by the NDF rather than Fano. There was a wave of drone and ground attacks in West Shoa, which killed about 500 in January, which is larger than reported. Attacks and raids by Fano and the ENDF in June in Shoa, and in June and July, Fano again attacking Horoguduru and East Wolaga. Now, as control of an area ebbs and flows between Ola and the government, or between Fano and the government now, reprisals have taken place against civilians who helped the regime that was there before the newcomers came in. And these are ordinary people who don't really understand or care much about politics. And the abuses continue. Just over 1 week ago, and in the latest report, we have 4 Kero members imprisoned in Dembidolo, paraded on television, and then executed and thrown in the bush. 5 Kero in East Shoa who were executed days later. 1 farmer tied to a stake and burnt to death in West Shoa. This is all in the last week. Abiy underestimated Fano. We all did. The depth and breadth of the hatred and disdain for Oromo has really shocked me, even after 35 years of exposure to this stuff. The self-delusion and belief in their own outrageous disinformation is barely credible, but it is effective. They've successfully deployed an aggressive victimhood, just like Israel justifies its atrocities against the Palestinians. And in fact, it's working. The War Graphics YouTube journalist, Jack Whistler, so-called YouTube expert, announced on a 20-minute program that the OLA were guilty of ethnic cleansing, not Fano, and that Fano were forced to enter Oromia in self-defense, for goodness sake. I've been reporting on human rights abuses in Ethiopia since 1992, and especially since 94 with OSG being set up. And I have no doubt that the severity of human rights abuses since 2018 is on a different scale. It's in a different division to that of the EPRDF. There are large-scale killings across Oromia. Look at the OSG reports on the website. There is impunity and contempt for human rights and the rule of law across the country. Tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of people who have killed are walking the streets in Ethiopia. Hundreds of thousands, possibly millions, are eyewitnesses to killings, gang rapes, other sadistic violence, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Ethiopia has become a melting pot of mutually hostile people, all severely traumatized, facing economic and social collapse, failing public services, with no access to healthcare or education. The standards of ethical conduct in the security forces no longer exist at all. The whole country, post-traumatic stress disorder. There's over 1 million dead in Tigray, probably already approaching that number in Oromia. This is an unfolding catastrophe. It's not just a recipe for catastrophe, it is a catastrophe. And why? Hate is the problem. A visceral hatred and disgust for other peoples is inherent within the Amhara supremacist mindset. And resentment against discrimination, I don't mean mild discrimination, this is the discrimination that's severe enough to shorten and blight whole lives, causes a counter-reaction, and so there is hatred against Amhara. So where do we go from here? This conference is part of taking stock, re-examining where we are and what we have to do. We're at ground zero, having lost almost everything. We can benefit by being able to build from scratch. Now we can be in charge of the foundations of our society. We can be the architects of our society, building its fabric from scratch. We can build according to GADA principles of inclusivity and consensus decision-making. We can build a democratic model, an example of stability and sustainability for the whole of Africa. As Africa's second largest people, we not only can do it, of course we can do it, but we must do it. It's in the Oromo DNA, democratic decision-making and a sustainable relationship with the environment. This is just what Africa and the rest of the planet needs. So how do we get there? How can we possibly make any difference at all? We can lobby, we can pressurize decision makers and power brokers, we can keep informing them of the need to break this mold of zero-sum politics, we can demand a level playing field in negotiations. We should all accept that violence is not the answer. We must remove the reason for the violence, which is hatred and fear. And this can only be done with education, discussion, information sharing, and active programs of trying to get Amhara and Oromo to work together and to reassure them, to get rid of their fears of what Oromo want.
You have 2 more minutes.
Oh, I won't need those. We're nearly done. Thanks, Meher. We need to obey strict standards of engagement, both with troops and civilians. And we need to broadcast truth. We need to expose disinformation, challenge false news items, and use the material that we have available. There's a whole lot of stuff on the Oromo Digital Asset Management Service website and on the Oromia Support Group website and the Human Rights League for the Horn of Africa website and OLA, Oromo Legacy Leadership and Advocacy Association. The information is there, it can be used. And please open doors, don't shut them. Make contact with old Amhara friends and their contacts. We need to discuss ways of reducing this tension and hatred. Finally, it's time to begin planning for transitional justice and a Truth and Reconciliation Commission for Ethiopia. We should be planning that now. We want to hit the road running when our time comes. And Indufa Jira. Fayata'a, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of the presentation. We now have Q&A for about 30 minutes. That's the only thing that stands between us and our lunch. So we open the floor. I do have some hands already up. Start with Tasfa Abdiza, followed by Solomon, and followed by Denebo, if you don't mind, in that order. And then Makwe and Gamachu. Let us take those 5 first, and then we see how we do. But that's fun.
Yeah, okay. My question is, in fact, it is referred to the earlier session, but it can be answered as well right now. If the present Ethiopian political and economical crisis is to continue, what will be our destination at the end of the day? Thank you very much.
Okay. Basalamon, I see your next answer, unless this is from previous whatever.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Trevor. Yeah, my question is for Trevor. And it's, I'm comparing what the thing that OSG used to do back in the 1990s, and also what is being done now. I kind of feel yes, the information is gathered, it's put at a certain place, but its reach in its impact does not seem to be as strong as it used to be. One thing I remember at that time, what used to be done is, yes, information is gathered from back home and published in form of newsletter and on the website as well. But at the same time, actively being sent to newspapers, media group, politicians, policymakers, the UN. So it seems to me our reach and the impact of the work that OSG did used to be better than it is now. Well, I may be wrong, So am I wrong, or is there anything different? So that's my question.
Okay. Budinabo.
Ayyee itti fufuuf gaaffiin kiyya obbo Raayyaadhaa fi obbo Raayyaa waan amma isin pireezidant gootanis ta'ee warroonni isin duras dubbatanii martinuu haqii jiru ka sheer godhani Impaayera Itoophiyaa jedhamtu kuni Oromoo nyaataa akka jiraataa jirtu. Gaaga'umsi Oromoo irratti fidaa jirtu. Guddaa Oromoo nyaachuun jiraataatti kana martinuu inuma irratti walii gala. Furmaata irratti garuu dhahicha maaltu Oromoo dhahee jennaan afaan tokko haasawuu dadhabame. Eega ka Oromoo nyaataaru waraabessa Itoophiyaa jedhamu ta'e Oromoon keessattuu waa baratee waa dubbisne jennu kuni waraabessi kuni Oromiyaa keessaa bahuu qabaa jennee afaan tokkoon akka hin dubbanne dhahichuma maaltu nu dhahe kanarratti waa jettani jechuu barbaada. Quickly for Dr. Trevor, my question is, you have explained intensively about the atrocities that Ethiopia is perpetrating against the Oromo. I mean, these are not random killings, the arbitrary killings that are taking place, mass killings that Ethiopia is perpetrating against the Oromo is not random. It's part of the implementation of Abiy Ahmed's strategy of drying up the sea. They are just drying up the sea. But at about that level, the international community seems to be either turning deaf ear, blind eyes, or I would really like you to speak to that. Is it because we haven't done enough work to raise the awareness of the international community, or the international community are just risking moral bankruptcy by turning deaf ear and blind eyes to the genocide that Ethiopia is perpetrating against the Oromo? Thank you.
Okay, and Professor Makre. Professor Makre, jirta?
Yeah, thank you very much, Baru. My question is a short one and directed to Truman. Thank you very much, Trevor, for the presentation. I have just one simple question. This question has been on the table all the time. You have been raising it, in fact, for a long time, and that is making contact with the Amara intellectuals, politicians, and so on. How do you make contact with people who say what you say is not true all the time? People who do not read what you, or maybe they may read it, but what you write is not true. It is an invention. And they just don't want to listen to you. Truth for them doesn't come from the Oromo at all. Truth is what they speak. In Amharic, they say bihonim. Bihonim means even though, which means even if you believe that what you believe is not true, what I say is true, you must accept what I say. Otherwise, the conversation is over. How do you manage this type of people?
Okay, finally, Gambachu, and then Chaltu fi Wasihuni, fi Babinyani, yo Yerorgan, you will take it. Thank you, Samparan. I'm a Gambachu.
Thank you. In Agama.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Truman. My question is really the silence of Western nation, all the tragedies, all the genocide is going, particularly in Oromia, and by giving so-called Dr. Ahmed the peaceful Nobel Prize, and when he done all this one, is still very quiet, silent, doing nothing. So the empire building from the beginning of Ethiopian building is supported with the Western to continue maintaining the Ethiopian empire from Haile Selassie to current Ethiopian regime. So my really concern is all the speaker never mentioned the external forces who continue maintaining the Ethiopian empire leaders intact, continue doing the genocide. It's not new, killing the Oromo youth. In my young age, I witnessed those young Oromos who refused to go and fight Eritrea, murdered, and I witnessed that one. All my classmates, it still continue after 15 years. So my really question is, all the previous the speaker did not mention the Western continue supporting the Ethiopian rulers to keep going, killing, genocide. So what the reason behind? Is that just keeping the empire as it is? Or what the reason? Just really, this is bothering me always, why the Western continue keeping the fascist genocide regime of Ethiopia to continue doing what they're doing. Even after genocide in Tigray and in Oromia, nothing mentioned about revoking the peaceful Nobel Prize of Abiy Ahmed. So this, anything you can comment on this one? Thank you.
Okay, Letoma, very clear question. Okay, let's start in the order you gave your presentation. Start with Baraya, and then Dr. Straber will take over.
Okay. In terms of addressing the question, maybe if I have a minute and finish off my presentation, what do you think, Dr. Baharu? Just a minute.
Okay.
Can I do that? Okay, because
yes,
some of the answers are.
Yes, I think we still have some time. So
yes, good.
I'll give you 2 more minutes to complete your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, in 2 things. I think first let me respond to Opo Tasfa. If this crisis continue, what would be our fate? Was the question. I think we can change our fate, definitely, but it is in our hand. Otherwise, if the crisis continue, chances are we will face the situation of Yemen, Syria, and whatnot, even in a worse situation probably. But can we really, are we ready to change this crisis or to somehow arrest it. Yes, it is possible if we're willing to work with each other, with all the stakeholders. I think it's possible it could be averted from the looming crisis that you probably have in mind. But it's a matter of really being convinced that the crisis would not help any one party, any stakeholder. So the conversation should start and resolve the issue peacefully. I think that is the simplest answer that I have. I'm not a politician, but to me, that probably would answer your question. And Abbo Damboba, Ethiopian empire in Tuni, Homa, Ishuman Nurasa Jirama, Olitne Toi, Rako kana hikachu dinne kan jedhu san through harka keenya jira garuu harkuma keenyan irratti hojjechaa jirru. I think as keessatti waan inni jedhe hin jira isuman tuquu barbaada. Tokko waan humanitarian kan ilaalchise specifically sila specialize goone humanitarian crisis kana avertu godhuudha yookiin gargaaruudha. Konferansii tokko godhannee continuously kophaatti specialize goone manni kun suggest godhee ture tanaan dura. Urgent Oromo Humanitarian Organization strategize gochuu qabu crisis kan akkatti collectively handle godhani. Jaarma tokkollee yookiin consortium tokko jaarrachuu qabu kan jedhuun qaba. Akka conclusionitti waan inni lafa godhe maalinni given the current political stalemate and the government resolves to remain on course in addressing political problems through military means and the intransigence of the parties in conflict, the escalation of the conflict in Ethiopia is imminent. In the face of these realities, the Oromo people are very likely to face unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Hoping for the better, it is time to prepare for the worst. Even at this 11th hour, it is time to prepare. To prevent the catastrophic effect of the looming danger of all-out war, the Oromo nation must be prepared in all fronts. When I say all fronts, in political, in economic, social, what have you, yes, it's too late, but it's not too late to still get organized and avert the crisis. So of all, the readiness of the nation hinges on how well it gets organized to weather through the challenge of the time. So waan obbo Dambooban jedhe sanarratti waa'ee rakkoo empire sanii haasa'uudha namni afaan tokko afaan Oromoo hundi keenya hin haasofna garuu afaan politika afaan walitti nama dhiyeessu afaan jaarmolii walitti dhiyeessu afaan rakkoo saba kanaa hubatee dhimma saba kanaati jedhee dhimma paartii isaa yookiin dhimma mataa individuaalii isaa odoo hin ta'in warri akkasii mataan akkasii walitti dhufe gola tokkotti mari'ate rakkoo kana keessaa bahuu hin dandeenye. Silaa rakkoo keenya artikulee goone kana rakkoon Oromoo jennee wal hubachaa hin jirru akkamitti kana keessaa bahaa jiru. So the first thing is first, the discussion has to really appeal amma abbaan caalaa isinitti iyyaa ture. Walitti dhufnee haa mari'annu jedhu. Hundumtuu gola ofiitti bakka bakkatti mari'atu. Gara when are we gonna have that national conversation under an auditory? We claim to be Oromos of democratic heritage, but we don't seem to exercise that. Our culture has been adulterated with the Abyssinian culture of still that uncompromising culture, and we end up going to really serious problem as a nation. So discussion is unjalqabu qaba. Nunyacha akka ririmaatitti jirti biitti sun. Garuu ririma san keessaa bahuudha. Ririma akkamitti balleessinaa afaan tokko dubbannee strategize goone hoo bobbaane malee akkanatti kophaa working in a silo, being a political organization, a humanitarian organization, whatnot, iriguu gahuu hin dandeenye. We have to really come together and work across the board well in Hojan.
Excellent point. I can't agree more. Dr. Trevor, please, it's yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Baharu. And they're all excellent points, and I must say I agree with all of them. What end if this descent into chaos continues? Then it will be a catastrophe. As Raya said, like Yemen or Syria, but there are also reminiscences of Yugoslavia, Somalia, Sudan, Libya, and Rwanda. There are features in common with each of those, and distressing as that is to consider. We need peace talks. We need independently monitored, internationally supported negotiations. That's the only way forward as far as I can see. Solomon, you pointed out that we are less effective than we were. That is true. It's either because I'm getting older or because there's more competition out there. But yes, I feel my role is to provide the information, and I will use that when I can. But really, I cannot do everything. I think it's up to other organizations to use the information provided by OSG as ammunition in this information war that we have. Denebo, the blind eye of the international community. Yes, we're not doing enough, perhaps, and surely, yes, that's true. Others are doing a lot to try and sideline us. This is the disinformation machine of the Amharas. And the international community itself is not as interested as we think they might be. We have this impression that the West prioritizes human rights. It does not. It prioritizes its own economic interests. Mercurio was saying, how can we negotiate with Amharas if they ignore and disbelieve you? And well, yes, this is right. This is describing the problem. And to begin with, perhaps all we can hope for is to talk through third parties who have contact with both of us. And they're certainly connected to every organization that we have connections to in the West. And there's no reason why we shouldn't use third parties to negotiate. Why the silence of the West? This is similar to turning a blind eye. You know, the US government is even threatening to resume the African Growth and Opportunity Act availabilities for Ethiopia, although I don't think that will go ahead. But the international community is interested only in one thing, and that's its own interests. And the West has invested a lot in Ethiopia, and it's going to maintain its own invention as long as it can do. And I agree, the role of external forces is huge in Ethiopia. A good proportion of its GDP comes from foreign aid. So there's a huge amount of leverage that's feasible there, that's possible, but it won't be used by the West until they see that they're negotiating with people who will hold power. So it's power and information, and we need to demonstrate that the Oromo are the solution to Ethiopia's problems, not the problem itself. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, there's somebody behind the scene who's been trying to ask, but unable to raise his hand. So I'll start with him, Zelalem, and then followed by Benya, Chaltu, and Wasahu, in that order. Zelalem, please make your question straight to the point, and so that you don't have to miss your lunch. We have 7 minutes. Zelalem jirta?
I think Zelalem waan harka kaasanetti hin fakkaatu.
Yeah, in kaasne message na ergi chat room anna ergi.
Oh.
Kaasun danda'u ol kaa'ee. Okay, let's go to Benya. Zelalem, you will get
Yeah, thank you for presenters. It's really fascinating. I have one question. I know our social economic problems are getting complicated further and further. One of the major issues that I see is social media. Our Abyssinian friends are using social media to propagate hate and so dehumanizing the Oromo people. And those social medias actually, those individuals who are propagating such as hate speech, they are actually funded based on the number of followers they have. So they have a material interest to do so, to continue doing it. So the question I'm asking for, the question I'm asking is, I'm based on the founder of Genocide Watch. One of the first steps in genocide is dehumanizing the group. They are now continuously dehumanizing the Oromo people, which makes
Please,
it easy
go to the
to
question,
kill and
please.
torture. So the question for
question.
you is, what can we do about social media? Are we prepared to face it? Do we have any mechanism to face it at all? Thank you.
Okay. At the child. And muti taate jirta.
Dhageessuun
Eeyyamas dhagaye.
dhiifama. Sila seeshinii jalqabaa irratti harka kaasee turelleeti yeroo carraan nan geenye jeequmsii fi lolli naannoo sanaa qabeenya Oromiyaatiif ta'ee akkasumas immoo qooda fudhannaa fi humna Oromootiinis ta'e gara caalaan kan jedhu sila Obbo Caalaan kaasee ture seeshinii jalqabaa keessatti. Egaa kunis dhugaadha. Waa'ee Oromiyaa independensii yeroo gaafatamu Profeesar Turnbull conceivably dha garuu qormaanni irratti ta'e hin jiru jedhe. Kunis dhugaadha. Maaliif Oromoon waggaa 50 olii fi impaayera sana suphuuf baay'ee dhamaa ture. Ammuma dhiyoo kanaatti waa'ee equality, waa'ee dimokiraasii Oromoo duwwaatu hawwa. Egaa akka warri faranjii jedhanis it takes two to tango waan jedhan qabu. Karaa warra Amaaraa kana irratti argaa hin jirru. Waa'ee amma keessumatti immoo amma kiliillii gadi ba'ee jira. Durillee baay'ee mul'achuu dhiisuu danda'a. Kanaaf Oromoonis gowwoomfamee wishful thinking isaatiin waa'ee equality, waa'ee dimokiraasii yaadaa ture jechuudha. Kanaaf amma kan inni tokkoffaa eega jeequmsi kun waa'ee Oromootiif ta'ee Oromiyaan amma impaayera sana keessaa ba'ee nagaan dhufaa laata? Akka kanatti yaadameera. Qormaanni karaa yoo independence Oromiyaan independentii ta'ee nagaan bu'uu danda'a, guddinni dhufuu danda'a. Oromiyaa qofaaf utuu hin ta'in impaayera sanaaf iyyuu, naannoo sanaaf iyyuu, gaafa Afriikaaf iyyuu nagaa fiduu danda'a. Oromiyaan independentii yoo ta'e yookiinis immoo isteetonni gara biraanis warri barbaadan independentii yoo ta'anii ilaa biyya lafaa keessatti immoo waan baay'ee arginee jirra. Yugoslaaviyaan wal lolanii gargar ba'anii amma nagaadhaan jiraatu. Chekoslovaakiyaan lolaan gargar hin baanne garuu amma nagaadhaan jiraatu gargar ba'anii. So qormaanni akkasii karaa qabeenyaa, karaa nagaa, karaa maalii buusuudhaa Oromiyaan yoo indipendentii taatee caalaa gargaara naannoo sana. Oromiyaa qofaa utuu hin ta'in.
Okay, please.
Taattuu nagaa buusa kan jedhu qormaanni akkasii hayyooti keenya, beektoti keenya utuu irratti xiyyeeffatanii kan jedhu. Ani gaaffiyyuu miti yaadan kennuu barbaada. Maaliif qormaanni isaa hin jiru kan kana argisiisu kan jedhu. Silas Profeesarichi dubbatee ture. Anis immoo ilaallus kanuma. Kanaaf kanarratti utuu xiyyeeffatame gar tokko duwwaa ilaaluun asiin nu ga'ee jira jechuun barbaada fayyaa ta'a.
Egalatoon daqiiqaa tokkittiitu nu hafe yeroo itti deebisanidha. So garuu ijaan silasinii waan jedhee waasiniif yaadee please just go straight to the question and then we'll close the question session and let the speakers respond to your question. Wasihun and then Yared. Please, Gafidwa, no comment. Please.
I don't have any comment, but I would like to express sincere thanks for those people who have prepared this presentation. My main question is for every academician, every political leader every Oromo in this room. What is the main problem behind, or what is the force behind all of us not to be united against the collective enemy? We have been struggling so far. We have tried our best. We have presented papers. We have collectively stood up in front of the State Department. We have been doing so many demonstrations all over the world, but it looks like we are collectively not united against a collective enemy. How are we going to be united against the collective enemy? What is the role of academicians and political leaders to bring the Oromo together, narrow the differences that we have?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Yared. Yared? Jirta? Okay. Injiru jechuudha. Now I give the two speakers a chance to respond.
Abagutu had his hand up for a while, I think.
Who?
Abagutu?
Yeah, I.
Carran system na rakkisee otoo nun gaafadhe baay'een jalla.
Okay, please, gaaffii duwwaa, no comments. You are going to be late for your lunch.
Alright, carraa kana baay'een isin galateeffadha. Baay'een ture system na rakkisee nan gaaffiin koo duraanii kan Profeesarii baay'een isaanii kan dubbatan nan qaba nan gabaabseetan gaafadhe. Tokko gaaffii ani qabu Abashoonni karaa Yemen irraa dhufaniira jiru lakkoofni isaanii amman. Ittaan seemuu kan hin gaafadhu maalinni as the ongoing war is against Oromummaa and Oromonness, how could it be possible not only in the Ethiopian empire, even to exist as a neighbor? Kanuma namaaf gaafadha.
Okay. Galatoma, thank you. Over to you, speakers.
Do you want to go first, Raya?
Okay, now this time take.
Okay, some of these are, hardcore political questions, but I will venture to attempt one of them. The last one, I think that the one that the young man has asked. I was asking this same question probably 30 years ago, but up to today, nothing has been materialized. But still, the hope is there that one day we'll get united. But, the effort has to start primarily from the gatekeepers of the political forces. They have to really come out and willing and call their people for unity among the forces. And yes, there is a unity of people, we say all the time, and that could be eroded unless you really work hard at it right now. So it's a matter of collectively working on it. And I don't think I have really a magic solution for that. But such a discussion has to continue. Somehow, somewhere down the line, we'll be united, I hope. That's all I would say on that question. As far as the social media question that Dr. Benya raised, I think that in itself is a big, a major question that will require a conference, and I will leave it as that. I think those are the only two that I could say something on. Thank you, Dr. Truver. Over to you.
Thank you, Raya. Benya's point about social media and hate speech, there are watchdogs, and there is a whole department in Facebook concerned with moderating hate speech. And if we can take up every instance with those watchdogs, that would be part of the response, I think. Charlton, I'm afraid I didn't understand your question in Afan Oromo. Wasihun's question, what's keeping us disunited? Well, it's a feature of most oppressed people that they will tend to fight amongst themselves. It's also a feature of Oromo discussion that alternatives are raised, and it's never a unipolar discussion. There's always an opposing view expressed, and I think that's part of the Oromo nature, really. The series of conferences that we've had on the Oromo Human Rights Group, I think this is the 6th now over the last 3 years, and there has been a growing sense of consensus and conformity in terms of what the Oromo want. So don't be too discouraged there. Things are going in the right direction, I believe. Abagutu, how can we coexist as neighbors? Well, this is what we really need experts' advice on, isn't it? There has to be some sort of negotiated settlement or a process that we can work through to try and alleviate the racist hostility that's prevalent in Ethiopia. And I think we should involve experts in this with international mediation people. And those are my only thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The organizers have advised me behind the scene if I could give a chance to Mr. EDH. I understand he has been trying to ask questions, but for some reason we couldn't get to him. I obliged with the organizers and asked Mr. EDH to chip in your question quickly, please. But at this point, officially, we are almost done. So anybody who is very hungry and want to leave, feel free to go and eat. Okay, EDH, please.
Okay, thank you very much, all speakers, modulators, and organizers. I'm speaking from Oromia. That's why I don't want to label my name here. This is a typical scenario of what we are living in. We want to hide who we are because of the situation we are living in. We are facing and tapping on the problem each day, that the implicit and the explicit problem that each and every Oromos are feeling today. All what I have heard since I joined the conference was only the explicit one. There are a lot of hidden or the implicit, particularly the war ongoing, the psychology of the Oromo. And Oromos are now in crisis. So I feel like and asking question to myself and everyone, what is the reason behind Oromos are in deep unconsciousness of the situation ongoing on the current and the future generation? Why Oromo externalize the problem? We have the resource, educated people, international friends whom we will work with in, like Professor Truber and the other speaker before. Why we are still unaware of our own problem rather than pointing out to our enemies? We are speaking their strengths. They are well organized. They have done their job, and they put us in this crisis and chaos. And our peoples are now in the state of no hope. I'm telling you the truth. I'm speaking deep in Oromia. So what is the major reason that we are unaware of our current situation and that our enemies are well organized, identified it, and worked over it? One particular professors of the elite from this Amara group set out 20 years ago is post-reconstruction structuralism, that indirectly what Abiy is now implementing in terms of the educational system and every aspect, including the security organization. So I think our problem is, for the time being, we need to look inward, but we are unaware of that still now, from my understanding. I have lived in this situation for the last 20 years, and I'm hearing the same problem and issues. That's what I want to ask. Thank you very much. I think you want to eat your lunch and enjoy it.
Thank you very much. That is the most
Ifama otoo harkaan baasiinan jedhan gaaffiin koo hin deebine gaaffiin koo attamitti akka hollattu jiraanna wajjiniin kan jedhu tokkommoo Habashoonni Yemenii kan dhufan lakkoofni isaanii hammamii Profeesar Makuraa gaafachuun barbaadee ture. Jara kana wajjiniin hin jiraanna Oromummaatu jibbame. Oromoo taaneetu jibbamne. Jireenya iyyuu hin dandeenyu jeenosaayidiitu jira. Asirratti akka gaariitti kabardii hin taane waggaa 5 nama keenyatti dhume ammayyuu dirooniin kan dhumu dhoksaan kan dhumu kan adireesii gootanittu walakkaan siistamni na baaseetu ture. Oo barbaachise afaan Ingiliziinis gaafachuu nan danda'a. Dhiifama harka waan motoon baasiinan gaafadhe kanuma gaaffiin koo.
Rakkoon hin jiru. Yeah, I share your frustration and mana kana keessa namni deebisuu danda'u jira yoo ta'e the floor is open for anybody to give it a shot to answer their question. Very powerful question and akka mataa kootti akka ilaalutti garuu mana kana keessa ammaaf deebii qabna natti hin fakkaatu. But wanti hundi keenya itti yaaduun nurra jiradha. But extremely powerful and very valid question. Over to the organizers. Solomon, please. Mana kana fudhadhuuti gaggeessiga.
Galatooma Dr. Baaruu namni deebisuu danda'u yoo jiraate I think carraa isin ilaalla deebisuu dandeessu garuu isatti gaaffii.
I have raised my hand, Solomon.
Okay, suuraa isiniin kenna. Sanatti dabalee garuu gaaffii obboleessi koo kaasee unawareness jedhamoo is a really Oromoon unawareness qabadama are we really in denial? We don't know what is going on or we denying it? Is that we live in the situation? That is the answer we need to answer. The question we need to answer about it. Because I don't think if somebody say we're not aware of what is going on, that is actually we lying to ourselves. But we live in denial at some point. That's my opinion. Dr. Professor Makuria, daqiiqaa lama isinii kenna. Tole.
Yeah, gaaffiin wanni jedhe waan lakkoofsi arabarraa dhufanii meeqa akka jedhame sun hin beekamu inni waggaa dheeraa keessa tokkoon dhufanii naggaadee dhufe maaltu dhufe biyya sana qubate dur isaanirraati warri Semitic jedhaman kuni afaan isaanis kan dhufe kanaaf lakkoofsa tun ta'in warruma gamanaa ofitti dabalanii jechuun assimileetii godhanii fuudhanii dhalchanii isaanumatu Semitic speaking Ethiopians ta'e. Hunduma miti warri kana ta'anii waggaa dheeraadhaa fi wal horanii uummata ta'antu jiru lakkoofsa isaanii egaa warruma amma Amaarri hammanadhaa Tigreen hammanadhaa kan jedhamudha. Lakkoofsi isaaniitti yoo deemne. Wajjin jiraachuudhaaf hin dandeenyaa kan jedhu isaanuu fixaa jiru. Gaaffiin inni lammaffaan consciousness sun sana irratti ka'a. Isaanuu fixaa jiru. Isaanuu confederationiin kan fudhatamee fi wanni goone waan qabnu walitti finneetu wajjin jiraannaa kan jedhu sana irratti kan uumame. Isaan har'ayyuu confederationii sanaa hin barbaadan. Federaal structurein kun haa baduu jedhu. Lammaffaa karaa garbiraa gaaffiin kan ka'aa ture kun Oromoo irratti lola guddaa maas miidiyaadhaan geggeessaa deemu. Lola qofaatu hin taane lola illee galchan amma Oromiyaa keessatti jalqabnaa Oromiyaatti dabarsinaa biyya Amaaraa keessatti isa lolaa jirru jedhaa jiru. Isaanuu jalqaban. Isaanuu jalqabaniiru garuu nurra jira. Consciousnessii ta'uun ofii ijaaruun an keenya jabeessuun nurra jira. Isaanuu fixaa jiruumi. Kanaachi nu Oromoo fixuudhaaf adeemu. Kanaaf yoo jabaanne malee yoo ijaaramne malee waliigaluu manni rakkinni kuni nurra turaa dhumarratti immoo numaaniyyuu baay'ee miidhaa kan jedhu. Oromoo maaliif konsheesii ta'uu dide? Waggaa dheeraadhaa fi aadaan Oromoo nagaa. Lammaffaan Oromoon baay'een seenaa baraallee jira. Ijoolleen warri amma qabsoorra jiranii dhugaadhumatti dammaqaniiru. Nan dhaggeeffadha yeroo baay'ee waa isaan jedhan. Garuu Oromoon baay'een immoo hin dammaqne. Asuma warruma intellectual warruma scholars jennu kana keessa baay'een isaa maajoritiin isaa seenaas hin beeku. Waan Oromoo irra ga'es immoo qajeeltuudhaan iyyuu hubachaa hin jiru. Rakkinni achi jira. Sanarratti jabaachuutu nurra jira. Seenaa baruu, seenaa wal barsiisuu kuni dirqamuma. Waan karaa gara biraa dhufu sunis karaa lola irraa dhufu sunis dirqama nu dirqamsiisuudhaaf adeema. Haa ta'u iyyuu malee hin ga'u inni qofaan ofii keenyaan dammaquun nurra jira. Kana jechuun barbaada obbo Salamuun fayyaa ta'e.
Sa'aatiin keenya sokkaa jira. Gaaffiidha moo yaada obbo Hojjetaa? Iddoo isaa Hojjetaa kan
na dhageessan?
Dhagaan jira. Ani obboleessa keenya kan biyya gaafatee fi gaaffiiwwan maaliif tokko ta'uu dadhabnee kan jedhu irratti yaada kennuun barbaade.
Daqiiqaa tokkittiin isinii kenna. Baay'ee kennuu hin dandeenyu. Sa'aatiin sokkeera.
Summarize godhutti deemtee yookiin zalaalama Itti deebiftee ture malu summarize godhee gaarii.
Yeroon qabdannoo ta'e haafu qaba.
Yeroon jalaa dhumee jechaa jiru odeeffama obboleessa kiyya. So kanaafi galatooma hundumti keessa nama ammaatti addana jirtanii. I'll give back to Dr. Truman to discuss about tomorrow's plan and then summarizing today's conference. Dr. Truman, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Solomon, and thank you for being MC today. That's it's been great. I'm very pleased with today's discussion. We have concentrated on the situation that we're in and how we've got there. Tomorrow, we will broaden our outlook, involving other people and other people's ideas, and we will be looking forward to ideas for getting out of the mess that we're in. We're going to look forward rather than looking backward. So I hope that we will see you all tomorrow at the same time as we started today. And thank you very much. It's been a very good conference so far. I've been very impressed with the standard of presentations and the scope of them. I know people are feeling despondent, and it does seem hopeless at times. But as Noam Chomsky says, if you say there is no hope, you guarantee there is no hope. We've got to work forward to a solution, which we will find. So let's meet again tomorrow. Thank you very much for all your patience and attentiveness. Thank you.
Okay. Nageessa Solomon.
Nanaga.
Okay. Fayyaa ta'ee nama geggeesseera. Garuu viidiyoo tokko sheerii gochuu barbaada. Warri arguu barbaadanis turuu dandeessu. Gaaffii nama ka'ee dinaalii irra jirra moo awweerii ta'uu dadhabne isa jedhuu fi fakkeenya tokkoon isinii kennuu barbaade. Abbaan barbaade turuu danda'a. Warri kaanii dhumeera walga'iin jedheen dubbadhe. So, okay. Viidiyoon kun viidiyoo ijoolleen warri amaarummaa qaban Wallagga keessatti dhalatanii qofaa isaaniitti walga'ii isaan godhatanii akkatti gara waan gochaa jiranii fi gara fuulduraatti hojjechuuf deeman waan isaan irratti dubbatanidha. Iskiriinii koo argaa jirtu ni yaada. Wannoon isaaniillee argamu garuu sagalee isaanii hin dhageessu. Abbaan barbaadan turtanii ilaaluu dandeessu. Warra kaaniif dhumeera jechuudha walga'iin kuni fayyaa ta'a.
በጣም ተመሳሳይ ቢኖር እውነቴን ነው የምላችሁ።
I'm sorry?
Linkii walga'ii borii akkamiin arganna inni irraa waa'ee nu rakkise.
Isuma har'aati.
Koodiin isuma har'aati.
Isuma har'aatu hundisa.
Galatooma.
ነው በጣም ተመሳሳይ ብኖር እውነቴን ነው የምላችሁ ምንም አያደርጉም በተግባር ያየሁትን ነው መነግራችሁ 2012 ላይ የትምህርት ቤቱ በየዩኒቨርሲቲው አንዳንድ አማራ ምንም ሳያስቀሩ ማለት ነው ተመራቂዎች ሳያስቀሩ ሁሉ እያፈናቀሉ በነበረበት ሰዓት እኛ ኦሮሞኛ የምንችለው ኦሮሞኛ እየተናገር እነዚህ ጆሌ ከኛ ደኩን እንጀዶ ይችላል እዛ የኛ ልጆች ናቸው ይሉናል እንደዚህ አይነት የለይቶ መስራት ስራ የብልጥነት ስራ በርግጥ የለባቸውም እነሱ በጅምላ መነዳት እንጂ ማለት ነው የኛ ልጆች ናቸው ብለው ይተውናል እኛ እንደዚህ አድርገን ራሱ ነፍሳችንን ማስመለጥ የምንችል ሰዎች ነን ግን ደግሞ ማንነታችንን አንቀይርም እኛ ማራውያን ነን ወለጋነን ቋንቋ እንችላለን ቋንቋ መግባቢያ ነው ቢኒ እንዳለው ልክ ነው ነገር ግን ማንነታችንን አንሸጥም እኛ ማራውያን ነን ዛሬም ወደፊትም ማራውያን ነን ስለዚህ ማንነት አይለወጥም ማንንም መርጦ የሚወለድበት ነገርም አይደለም እንደዚህ ያላችሁ አትከፋፍሉን ለማለት ፈልጋለሁ አመሰግናለሁ ቀጥይት
ጋይስ የምትገቡ ሰው ካላችሁ ሐሳባችሁን ቀጥሉ አጠር እያደረግና ሰውም እንዳይደክመው ባዶ ቦታ አለ እስከዛ አኪላም ሐሳብክን ስትስቲ ወንድም
ይሰማል አይደለ
የሚጣናት ኦኬ ኤክስኪውዝ ሚ እሺ ሐሳብሽን ስለዚህ የሚጣና ይቅርታ አኪላ እስቲ ስጥ ሐሳብሽን የሚጣናት
ኦኬ አይ እኔ በዚህ ጉዳይ እንኳን ምንም የምለው ነገር የለኝም ማለት ከሰላን ዋና ሶፍተን ይቀብዱ ማለት አላቅም እኔ እንዴት እንደተደረጃችሁ ምናምን ብዙ ኢንፎርሜሽን የለኝም በርግጥ ግን ይሄ መገፋት ምናምን ኦሮምኛ ቋንቋ ማውራት ምናምን ባለችው ዙሪያ በጣም እኔ እንኳን ሚዲያ ላይ ስመጣ ብዙ ነገር ተብለናልኛ በሰዓቱ ኦሮምኛ አማርኛ መናገር የማይችሉ ልጆች ምናምን ከኛ ጋር ነበርና ያው አማራነታቸውን እኛ እናቃለን ግን ያው ሌላ ክልል የሚኖሩት አማራዎች ወይም ደግሞ አማራ ክልል የሚኖሩት አማራዎች ኦሮምኛ ማውራታቸውን እንጂ አማራ መሆናቸውን አያውቁም ነበር በዛ ሰዓት ብዙ ነገር ተብለናል እናቃለን በጣም ብዙ ነገር ያው እስከሚያልፍ ድረስ ግን አሁን ላይ ምንም ማለት አልፈልግም ስቲል ቤተሰቦቻችን እንኳን ከዛ ተፈናቅለው ሂደው እዛ እንኳን የሆነ ነገር ገስተን መታወቂያ እንኳን ስጡ ስንላቸው በርግጥ በአዴን ቢሆን የሚገፋብን ብዙ የሚያስከፋ ነገሮችን ያስተናገዱ ነው አሁን እንኳን ከወለጋ ሄዱት ማለት ነው እና እዛው መብታችን ቢከበርልን ለኛ በጣም የተሻለ ነው ርስታችን ሙሉ ነገራችን እዛ ስላለ ማንነታችን አማራ ነው አይ ነው ከየትም እንሄድ ከየትም ደሞ ስደተኛ አይደለንም እኛ ወለጋ ርስታችን ነው ስደተኛ ወይም ተፈናቃይ ምናምን አይደለንም ራሳችን የኛ ቤተሰቦች ጫካ መንጥረው መሬቱን አልምተው ከተማ እንዳደረጉት ወይም ደግሞ አገር እንዳደረጉት መናገር አለብን ይሄንንም ግረ መንገዳቸው እየተናገራችሁ ሄዶ ሌላው እንትን አሁን እናንተ ልዩ ዞን ይሰጣል ምናምን ብለናል ኦኬ ለምሳሌ እና የት ለምሳሌ ምዕራብ አለ ምስራቅ አለ የት ቢሆን ነው የምትመርጡት እናንተ ማለት ይሄንን አይዲያውን ስታመጡ ያው በጣም እንደተበታተንን ታውቃላችሁ ወለጋ ውስጥ እና የት ይሆናል ብላችሁ አስባችሁ ነው ያን ይሄንን ሐሳቡን ስታመነጩት
እሱን በውስጥ ይቅርታ እሱን እንደዚህ ያሉ ነገሮችን በውስጥ ነው የምናወራው ሚጣ እንደዚህ ያሉ ነገሮችን በውስጥ ነው የምናወራው እና ሐሳብሽ ለጊዜው እንደዚህ ከሆነ አሪፍ ነው በውስጥ ኬሳን ኬሳን ፉበርባዴ ኬሳን ዋና ደዳ ዱበቹ እንደኛ ቶኮፋ ዋናና ሰው በርባዱ አሲረቲ የራሶፍኑ ኦፍ ቀብኒያ ሰው በርባች ሳረቤታ ገቲ ከናቲ ፊኑቲ ሐረሴ ለቀቤሳቲኒ ሞቱማ ፌደራላስ ተይ ሙሚቸ ሚኒስትራቲን ተይስ ሞቱማ ናኖ ኦሮሚያቲን ስቴ ሱኑቲ ሚርጊ ሰበኬኛ ኑፋይገሙ ፈኬኛ ፍኑቲ አማራ ናኖ አማራ ረቲ ኡመተ ኦሮሞቲፍ ሰባ ኦሮሞቲፍ ልዩ ዞን ከኒኔ ጅራቻ ጅሩ አማ ጀሪ ፖለቲካ ከናንዲሱ ከን በርባደኒ ኡመኒ ወለጋ ፈጨ ጅራ ኖ ፈጨ እንጅሩ ኡመኒ ወለጋ በከተኮ ጅራ አከፈጨው ከንጎዴሞ ጀራ ቤና ወልቤና እንዲከኛዩ ገቲ ከናቲፊ ዋና ከናከና ኬሳኒ ዱበና ያደ ወሪቀ ባተን ያለ ኬሰን ከና ኬሳይና ሶፍነ ቹራ ይክረም የሚጣናት
አረከናል ወሽ ከናችሞ እንትን ጉትን አካባቢ ወይም ደግሞ ኪሮም አካባቢ ቤተሰብ ያላችሁ ደግሞ አሁን ላይ ጥሩ ሁኔታ ላይ አይደለም ወይም ደግሞ በአለም ምክንያት በማድረግ የሆኑ አንዳንድ ነገሮች አሉ ኢንፎርሜሽን ሰማላችሁ በተስፋ አደርጋለሁ ለቤተሰቦቻችሁ ብትነግሩ ደስ ይለኛል ጉትንና ኪሮም አካባቢ የታረፈ ቤተሰብ ካላችሁ ጉትን እንኳን አብዛኛው አማራ ነው አይ ነው እና ያው ጥሩ ሁኔታዎች ላይ አይደሉም አሁን ማለት አሁን ሰላም ይመስላል ግን አይደለም ውጭ የሚሰራበት ነገር አለ እዛ ቤተሰብ ካላቸው አስጠንቅቁ ለማለት ነው አመሰግናለሁ
አህመድ
Galatoma hundi keessanii jalaaleen bitteetti miti.
Biteera saluma dargaggeessatti.
Nagaa Waaqayyoon bolofitti deebinaa sa'aatii marraatti.
Zalaalam waan kana nu dhageessisuu keetiif hedduu galatoomi fayyaa ta'e.
Ayyee.
Caalaa kan amma dhageetti natti tole jaran ulfaadha.